I supposed to? Usually you then. Oh. Oh, this is the. Oh, this is. I think you're supposed to do This Is the Day as some gathering music. This is the day. This is the day. This is the day that our God has made. That our God has made. We will rejoice. We will rejoice and be glad in it. And be glad in it. This is the day that our God has made. We will rejoice and be glad in it. This is the day. This is the day that our God has made. Try that one more time. This is the day. This is the day that our God has made. That our God has made. We will rejoice. We will rejoice and be glad in it. And be glad in it. This is the day that our God has made. We will rejoice and be glad in it. This is the day. This is the day that our God has made.
I wanted to sit, but not you yet. Oh, thank you. I just wanted to sit over there and watch your fingers dance across the keys. We'll come back to that in a second. First, welcome to Sunday morning here at First Congregational in Fort Worth. We're delighted if you're here with us in the sanctuary. We're delighted wherever you're joining us in all of the sacred spaces. Some announcements concerning today. There is lunch bunch, and it is at Purple Frog. That's what I got, right? So if you're a lunch buncher, please raise your hand. If you wish to join any of the lunch bunchers for Purple Frog, you may go there. Today is also last Sunday for the adult chat. If you're an adult chatter, would you raise your hand? So that will happen over here. Then, as we will say, since we're a congregation made up of a lot of teachers, we will be in summer recess for adult chat. And it's still not your turn. Not yet. So I trust that if you are connected to this community, you might have gotten several emails from this week. We usually send out one or two, but this week was several. We sent out, I want to do them in reverse order. It is a season of celebration, of commitment, of commencement, and of blessing. Deshay, we are so excited for you as you and Zane head off to Boston. We know that you had hoped and prayed and just are absolutely delighted that it has come to be. So, Zane is not here this morning. Zane is off doing bells with some of our folk at South Hill. So, next week, we will bless, even as we have been blessed, Zane and Deshay, as you will leave the next day, correct? You will leave on Monday for Boston. The Sunday following, on the 9th, we will have another celebration, and we'll be sending out more information, the details of that. And that is as the Reverend Mike Bass has accepted a call to Pullman in Washington. Again, something, yeah, so you may have seen that. something Mike has been praying for and working on, and it just, without infantilizing or turning into adolescence, it just feels like commencement, like these are things people have worked for, and now is a season to bless them as they go. Of course, we have more feelings than just joy, but that's because some things are complicated, even in their joy. We're excited for both of you. Now, yes, just come. Yes, come on, let's have it. It's you, come. Nope, it's you, come. Look, seriously, would you just come now, please? She,
Been like we're playing in there for like 15 minutes.
to keep trying to come and then not to come when it actually is your turn.
And you know I had another word in there I was going to say, but I didn't.
Press my love, press my love.
Okay, so it's my turn. Thank you, finally. Okay, so what I'm here to talk to you today is about the situations and the types of ways that you should not.
I'm ready. It's arm day. We're strengthening our arms today. I'm ready. I'm here. Okay, are we ready? Let's go. Right? I'm here.
Okay, yeah, so I forgot that's not what I'm here to talk to you about.
Right. We're strengthening. It's arm day.
Yeah, actually, it's. You would think that's what it's about, but it's really not.
Oh,
So what it's really about is strengthening.
right.
But
Arm day.
the church.
The church.
Remember
Right.
that?
Okay.
Remember last year it was me and I was all messed up and stuff and I came running in and I was like, all right, you got your Englands, get up, we're gonna strengthen the church today. Come on, y'all need to go to the gym. Remember that part?
Oh, I got confused.
Yeah, I did too last year.
Okay.
But I'm on the right track this year, but I'm gonna
Oh.
catch you up to speed. So,
Okay.
you ready?
All right.
All right, cool. Good morning, everybody. What I'm here to talk to you today is about strengthening the church. And you can go home and strengthen your arms and your legs and all that stuff too if you would like. However, strengthening the church. How many new people we got out here today? New people in the congregation? Like, that weren't here last year with strengthening the church? Oh, so you know what it's about? Oh, okay, cool. So we got one person over here. We'll go ahead and we'll just talk to you. Good morning. My name is Kim. Nice to meet you. Welcome. So we're going to let you know that the Strengthening the Church is the church offering. It is an annual global congregation offering that reflects and shares the commitment of the people across the United Church of Christ to cooperatively build up the UCC conference in a national setting to equally share the gifts given by members and friends through their local congregations. The funds raise support, leadership, development in new churches, youth ministries, and innovation in existing congregations. So basically what the money that goes to strengthening the church is basically just to strengthen the UCC as a global whole. We donate money to this, and then that global fund goes to help create other churches like ours.
And I think actually our church has benefited from that fund in the past.
Okay, so yay, thank you. Your generosity to this offering helps build more congregations like us that fight for justice, create a space that is open, affirming, feeds the hungry, clothes the naked, creates home for those that have been disowned by their own families, creates shelters for those at the borders, and strives to create a just world for all with a movement for peace, justice, equality, and inclusivity. So if you have a moment, there's envelopes in the back of the chairs. There are green ones and white ones, but this is the one for strengthening the church. It even says it right there in the corner. So if you have a couple extra bucks, if you'll help us help our community as a whole throughout our world. Thank y'all.
Thank you.
Let's go to the gym, girl.
Okay, all right, here we go.
Is going to do another one in just a second, but I always, on special offering days, I also like to call attention. So this is a special offering. Because we are a 5 for 5 church, one of the 5 is what's called OCWM, our church's wider mission. And that's just built into our budget, meaning part of our church's budget is we contribute to that. That's what makes a United Church of Christ. That's what pays for our administration, our structure, etc. And I'm telling you that, so that means that on the other 4 offerings, if we have given to OCWM as we have, that means what we give to the other 4 special offerings almost 100%, just enough to pay for envelopes and a little bit of advertising, of as small as the small percentage goes off. In other words, what you give goes to what we are targeting. Almost 100%, because we are a 5 for 5 church. I just think that's extra cool. You have something super cool.
Super, super, super exciting and cool. So next Sunday is 2 really incredible celebrations. The first is happening during church service. We're going to celebrate our grads, our seniors. We have...
One of them is hers.
Yes, one of them is mine. They're all mine. So we have 4 seniors graduating, and they are going to help lead us through our church service. And we also get to celebrate some other graduations and promotions. And so it's going to be a beautiful senior-led service. It's going to be really fun. I'm really excited. And then afterwards, right afterwards, we are transitioning into the social hall to have an art auction. And it's an art auction made up of art created by the youth and by you guys, and donated by the youth and you guys. And the youth are going to help, they're going to lead the art auction. They're going to show you around and sort of introduce some of our amazing pieces. I believe we may even have a live auction by somebody in the congregation today. And all of the funds raised are going to help our youth and children's ministry for the summer. And so we appreciate it. We are very excited. It's going to be amazing. So come and hang out with us.
Thank you. You've worked very hard, all of you and Minnie.
Yes,
and
many,
we're excited for it to actually happen next week.
Yes, it's happening.
Also, next Sunday we will start. So at the very, very end, we will do the smallest wink and nod to the beginning of Pride next week. But there are 5 Sundays in June this year, so you'll still get a full 4 of Pride, and some other things happening on Tuesdays and some other things happening sometimes on Thursdays. There's a Pride Palooza that's coming, but we want to celebrate graduates first. Whew! I'm pretty sure Kim is interested in doing offerings just so that she can yank on my stole a little bit. Let's take a breath. Let's settle into our joy. Let's settle into our community. We were playfully saying as we were getting ready, for a little while, we weren't sure if there were going to be more of us supporting the service today than actual attendees. Turned out not to be true. We're here. We're going to make a service together. And let's continue to do so by continuing to affirm, no matter who you are or where you are on life's journey, you are welcome here. Let us greet each other with signs of peace and welcome.
Can't nobody.
Can't nobody do me like Jesus. Can't nobody do me like the Lord. Ain't nobody do me like Jesus. He's my friend. Healed my body, told me to run on. Healed my body, and he told me to run on. Healed my body, told me to run on. He's my friend. Can't nobody do me like Jesus. Can't nobody do me like the Lord. Can't nobody do me like Jesus. He's my friend. Jesus on the main line. Jesus is on the main line. You better tell him what you want. Jesus is on the main line. You better tell him what you want. Jesus is on the main line. You better tell him what you want. Call him up and tell him what you want. Said the line is never busy. Tell him what you want. The line is never busy. You better tell him what you want. The line is never busy. You better tell him what you want. Call him up, tell him what you want. Call him up, tell him what you want. Call him up, you better tell him what you want. Call him up, you better tell him what you want. Call him up and tell him what you want. Jesus on the main line. Jesus is on the main line. You better tell him what you want. Jesus is on the main line. You better tell him what you want. Jesus is on the main line. You better tell him what you want. Call him up and tell him what you want. Call him up, y'all. I said, call him up, tell him what you want. Call him up, tell him what you want. Call him up, tell him what you want. Call him up and tell him what you want. Call him up one more time. Call him up, tell him what you want. Call him up, tell him what you want. Call him up, tell him what you want. Call him up and tell him what you want. Said, call him up and tell him what you want. Call him up and tell him what you want.
Wow. I love that. Man, that's the best way to come up here ever. Thank you. Hello. Hello, everybody. Glad to see you guys. So what happened last week, y'all?
It rained a bunch.
It did rain a bunch. We had weather. Anything else really big happened last week?
school ended.
What?
Tuesday.
Yes. So last week the end of school for y'all too? Mm-hmm. It's kind of huge, like the hugest thing all year probably. This is Memorial Day weekend, and traditionally, like when I was going to school, Memorial Day weekend marked the beginning of summer, and so there's a lot of like tradition and memories wrapped up with that weekend and all of the celebrations that go along with it. Do you guys have any traditions or like typical things that you guys do around Memorial Day weekend or the beginning of summer?
Not really.
No? Just have some extra time?
We always take end of year pictures.
Of
But
like,
other than that, like we take a picture of like the beginning of the year and the end of the year and compare them to see how much you've grown.
wow, you did grow a lot. I like that. That's beautiful. Yes. Oftentimes we go swimming. Well, I don't go swimming because it's too cold, but like we go to water and other people go swimming. And so along with the beginning of summer, we get to start thinking about having a quieter schedule. Dylan, you and I were talking about that earlier today, and that's not as exciting for you as it is for me. But I really do love this time when we can like sometimes sleep in a little later. We can have fewer things on our responsibility to-do list. We can take more time to just like this morning, just like staring out the window, just like taking time to just be. And yes, spend more time outside. Yes. Dylan, you also brought to me this book when we were talking about the beginning of summer, spending more time outside and feeling just the quiet time and what naturally comes with just like being quiet and being outside. Would you like to read what you were talking about out there?
Of course. So this is Breathe. Okay, so this is the book Breathe, and it's about this girl who's always felt excluded, and she found refuge in nature. She sat at the back and said she was shy. She led from the front, and she hated her pride. They asked her advice and then questioned her guidance. They branched her loud, and they were shocked by her silence. When she shared no ambition, they said it was sad. She told them her dreams, and they said she was mad. She told her they told her that they'd listened. They'd covered their ears. They gave her a hug while they laughed at her fears. She listened to all of it, thinking she should be the girl they told her to do, be the best as she could. But one day she asked what was best for herself, instead of trying to please everyone else. So she walked to the forest and stood with the trees. She heard the wind whisper and dance with the leaves. She spoke to the willow, the elm and the pine. She told them what she'd been told time after time. She told them she felt she was never enough. She was either too little or far, far too much. Too loud or too quiet, too fierce or too weak, too wise or too foolish, too bold or too meek. Then she found a small clearing surrounded by firs, and then she stopped as she heard what the trees said to her. As she sat there for hours, not wanting to leave, for the forest said nothing, it just let her breathe.
Love it. Thank you. Yes, that was the absolute perfect book to bring to mind. Thank you. Thank you.
That was wonderful. Dylan, I don't know if you meant to do that, but you paused there for a little bit after you said something, what the tree said to her. It built some dramatic tension there. Thank you. We're so curious. What did the tree say?
Nothing. They just listened to her.
They just listened to her. That's great. I wonder if this time you all might have any joys, a big joy.
I'm excited because there's 11 days until my birthday.
11 days until your birthday. Nice. Lovely. I hope you have a great birthday. Someone else?
I would like to, we have some joys for some graduates that got to walk this past weekend.
Oh, yay. That's always a wonderful time. And those celebrations that mark the joys of life, we can remember and hold on to. Okay, well, I pray that you all would feel listened to and heard and have a voice. I hope you know that you are loved. And yeah. So, all right, thank you. Yeah, thank you for those. We'll expand the circle here. Friends, the Holy invites us to hold the needs of our neighbors, our siblings in Christ, as dear to us as our own needs. So let us take a few moments to center ourselves, to find a bit of stillness as we are able come together as one. And when you are ready, I would invite you to call out your joys, call out your concerns. Let us pray for those who suffer and those in need.
Gratitude and joy for the teachers who made it to the finish line.
Gratitude and joy for the teachers who made it to the finish line.
Gratitude for musicians and artists who live in our community.
Gratitude for the musicians and artists that live in our community. We're blessed with.
Prayer for my sister for burying her daughter Tuesday morning.
Prayer for Terry's sister. Her daughter will be buried tomorrow. Thank you.
Prayers for those that find this particular weekend to be a painful one.
Prayers for those who have a hard time with this weekend in particular, experience sorrow.
Prayers for those to give others the right of beingness, and for those who are not able to do it, at least give them tolerance.
Prayers for tolerance for those folks finding their way in their being.
Prayers for all those who are experiencing upheaval in their personal or work life, that they find some peace in the process.
Prayers for those, uprooted from their personal, professional lives. They find peace and solace. O Holy One, Creator God, in love you made the world before us, our place of being and home. Fill us with strength and courage as we face what concerns us. And comfort us, O God, in the grief and the rage. We long to be born again into the way of love, to practice hope and build community. Invite us into your joyful being where you are known in each beginning and in every redemption, that we may find healing and manifest your love. Amen.
Great is thy faithfulness, O God Creator. There is no shadow of turning with thee. Thou changest not, thy compassions, they fail not. As thou hast been, thou forever wilt be. Great is thy faithfulness. Great is thy faithfulness. Morning by morning, new mercies I see. All I have needed, thy hand hath provided. Great is thy faithfulness, Lord, unto me. Summer and winter and springtime and harvest, the moon and stars in their courses above, join with all nature in manifold witness to thy great faithfulness, mercy, and love. Great is thy faithfulness. Great is thy faithfulness. Morning by morning, new mercies I see. All I have needed, thy hand hath provided. Great is thy faithfulness, Lord, unto me. Summer or sin and the peace that endureth, thine own dear presence to cheer and to guide, strength for today and bright hope for tomorrow. thy faithfulness. Morning by morning, new mercies I see. All I have needed, thy hand hath provided. Great is thy faithfulness, Lord, unto me.
We're going to miss you. I think it's probably, I was going to say fair, maybe fair is not the right word, honest to confess that Memorial Day is not a liturgical holiday. Neither is Mother's Day or Father's Day. Let's also be clear, neither is Pride. But we take some things into our faith community and proclaim them again. Memorial Day. Some of us may have grown up calling it Decoration Day, particularly in certain parts of the country. In there becomes actually part of the setup of a historic conflict. What is it? What is its purpose? When did it start? If you Google this, you'll probably come up in one of your first search results, 1868, as a northern holiday. But if you read a little bit further, you'll discover that there's a lot of discussion about that. That maybe, in fact, the date is earlier than that, when some southern women, mothers, wives, were decorating Confederate graves. And that it was a response then to that in 1868. And then you have a whole bunch of conflict back and forth and back and forth. There's a place in Georgia whose name I don't need to say right now is made a proclamation. We're the ones who did it first, et cetera, et cetera. You won't have, your investigation, your research won't have gone far enough. And fortunately now, if you chase the Google rabbit down the hole a little bit, but not very far, fortunately, you'll come, I think, to what for me is the truth of it. May 1st, 1865, Charleston, South Carolina. A group of about, as I remember, 30 freed slaves went and took some Union soldiers who had fallen and who had just been quickly buried and reburied them into a cemetery that they established with a fence around it, a sacred space, and then held a day to honor that. And 10,000 African American blacks came all day and celebrated. Turns out it's a bit more complicated, isn't it? Memorial Day, in my opinion, or whatever we would choose to call it, was established not by the U.S. government, but by a group of freed slaves. So for Memorial Day a few weeks ago, I thought, well, it's not Veterans Day, and etiquette would say, by the way, in case we forget, this is not the day to thank someone for their service. It's specifically to remember those who have died. But I would like someone who has served. I'm an active pacifist and never served the military. And I just very casually asked Jay in our common space afterward, Jay, are you a veteran? Yes. Talked a little more, some interesting things were said. Okay, I'd like to hear more. We met for coffee for several hours. I heard more. Until it was finally just time, the time was, we just couldn't create anymore. But I wanted to create more. So we're going to continue what I found to be a very interesting conversation today. And you get to eavesdrop in on it. Jay, would you come join me, please?
It is my intention to be considerably briefer than our 3-hour talk.
I will join you in that intention. I'll watch the clock. Oh, what happened? Okay, so the tech team is asking for it. How about now? A little more? Like an ice cream cone. There?
Okay, I talk loud.
All right. It's not just for those who are here, but for those who are online. Well, Jay, I always find when having these conversations, the first question for me of interest is, what, if any, is your faith background, your faith history? For me, mine, I carry parts of it, I react to parts of it, but because of that, it's still present with me.
Well, my parents came from a now non-existent village in West Texas. And there were 2 churches there, Church of Christ and Baptist, and they were raised Baptist. Okay. So when I came along, my parents stayed with the Baptist church until my mother became disenchanted with them, and my elder sister pointed the family to an Episcopal church, and we joined that church. It was a great relief to me because I was in the 3rd grade, and in Sunday school was being demanded to learn all the books of the Bible, and memory work is the hardest thing in the world for me. So I was relieved.
The Episcopalian saved you.
In a sense, yes.
In a sense, indeed, right.
I went on from there and was a choir member, and ultimately, by the time I moved to Fort Worth, became a member of a Fort Worth church, where I became increasingly active. Started as a choir member, went on to be a lay reader, and was elected to the vestry.
Cabinet.
Subsequently, was made given the undesirable role of junior warden, which made me responsible for the upkeep of the place, and on one occasion, senior warden.
Okay.
So
principal, lay leader, moderator.
And during this time, there was considerable dissension in the North Texas area, particularly in the Fort Worth diocese, and I became involved in a group that was had as its purpose to maintain unity between the division, and that didn't work out too well. And ultimately, I became increasingly disenchanted and left.
Yeah.
When Faye and I married, she's a Congregationalist, and so now so am I.
So you were born into something and you were married into something, but for a brief
that's
period you chose something until you didn't choose it.
Yes.
I understand. Thank you. Yes. So I think like many of us at first, your faith community background really is a tapestry of different things that bring us here. There are some of us who are long-term Congregationalists, but most of us have been something else along the way. And I think that adds to our richness and our chaos sometimes. So to the question that leads us sitting here today, when I asked you if you were a veteran and you replied yes, you then told me a story that I found very compelling around that, particularly as it relates to the draft.
Well, the timing was important. It was during the build-up to the Vietnam War, and they were scraping the bottom of the barrel to get all the live bodies they could in the military, and I was drafted. So I had the option of going forward with being drafted, and with the knowledge that every 3rd draftee was going in the Marines, which left me shaking, or I could attempt to volunteer for the Air Force, which was subjected, at least mostly, to less hazard. So I volunteered for the Air Force and was for 4 years in the Air Force as a technician. I was ordered to Vietnam and even had a temporary stint in Okinawa, where I supported the bombing of Vietnam. All quite unwillingly, but I was faced with three choices. I could go to jail for refusing the draft. I could go to Canada, or I could go to the military. And I chose the choice least satisfactory to my conscience, but left me with some degree of freedom.
It's that I find so intriguing. None of us in this room are likely to face the draft, but we are often presented with very difficult choices that are very complex. And how the blazes do we sort them out? And your response, I think, is as helpful as any. It left you with some freedom, even as it was distasteful to you.
Yes, there's complications in life, as I think we're all pretty well aware. And the choices we're often faced with don't necessarily shine with all kind of gloriousness and desirability. But we either make them overtly or we suffer them without conscious decision. But in any case, we have to deal with what faces us.
In traumatology, that is the study of trauma, we often talk about this in terms of moral injury. That moral injury can happen to us, so that is when, whatever we would call that core of ourselves, our sense of morality, ethics, one could spiritualize it if we wanted to. It's not just when we do or are compelled to do something that violates that compass. We can also receive moral injury when we witness others do something and we can't stop it from happening.
Yes, and while one may not actively cause injury to others, one can be an accessory. Yeah. And in the state of Texas, the drivers of cars that hauled around people who killed other people wind up paying the ultimate price themselves. Mm. So it's recognized in the law and certainly felt by those who may not have actually perpetrated harm to others, but been instrumental in their ability to do so. And that leaves many of us with an abiding sense of guilt.
You bring this complex view to a particular story that we talked about in the Gospels. And, as a theologian, I recognize, the point that you were making, but I always take such delight when a parishioner raises it and I didn't. Would you offer your insight on the so-called Good Samaritan story?
Well, the story, as I most often heard it, centered around the actual narrative of a traveler waylaid and ignored by authority, but helped by the despised. But there's more to the story than that. It wasn't that the Good Samaritan was just a good guy. It was to answer some very significant questions. Because the motivation for the parable in the first place was a Pharisee asking Jesus, how do I attain to eternal life? And the answer, Jesus answered, what do the scriptures say? And the Pharisee answered, to love your God with all your heart, with all your strength, and with all your mind. And Jesus answered, you have answered correctly. So then the Pharisee went on and said, but who is my neighbor? And that was the motivation for the story. Now, in the story, all you hear about the traveler is that he was stripped, beaten, and left for death. And two high officials with the Hebrew temple passed him by and ignored him. This is a pretty subversive story. The one person who took pity on him was somebody that the Jews despised, the Samaritans. He takes him, treats his wounds the best he can, sees to his continued treatment, and offers to pay for it out of his own pocket. So then Jesus asks the question at the end, who was neighbor to this man? And the Pharisee had no answer, but he says, the one who showed mercy on him. And the story ends with, go and do likewise. Pretty simple story when you get the whole thing, but there's more to it than one individual being a nice guy. Today, throughout the world, we're faced with the same question. Who is our neighbor? We're seeing it played out in the Middle East right now. And we're having political dissension right now because of choices politicians are making that are belying this very parable's teaching. So I find that story to be compelling and not necessarily comforting, because I know there's many cases when I have failed. I think is the definition of sin, to fall short. And in the Episcopal liturgy, there's a differentiation between sin and wickedness. Sin is when you fall short, and wickedness is when you overtly do the wrong thing. I'm pretty good at both.
I'd confess to. I am again, as I said during our coffee time, and yes, we'll end it here, but I again have that feeling. And I want to say the complexities of compassion, but the more I've thought about that phrase, it almost seems to me like complexity is redundant. If you know anything about compassion, you come pretty quickly into the complexity of it. Because to really try and be compassionate, you will see your own sinfulness and wickedness. And then what do you do? Then what do you do? Jay, thank you for today. Thank you. Right, think on your own 20-year-old self having to, how do you make these choices? I mean, that alone is the moral injury, and there is more.
Yes, thank you, Jay. That was nice. The God of abundance invites us into a relationship of sharing. Sharing ourselves with others through time, energy, resources, attention even. It's those things that build communities and connection. So let us bring together what we have. We dedicate this offering to the slow work of addressing change and breaking down barriers. God of justice, hear our prayers. Amen.
Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. Let there be peace on earth, the peace that was meant to be with God our Creator. Children all are we. Let us walk with each other in perfect harmony. Let peace begin with me. Let this be the moment now. With every step I take, let this be my solemn vow to take each moment and live each moment in peace eternally. Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me.
And Jay and I played with the text together. We were imagining who that person might have been on the road that needed help. And both of us wondered at one point, was that person actually a robber who other robbers had come and beat up to take what they had stolen? Maybe. The story is complex. The stories in this amazing community are complex. And when you learn to find actually some comfort with the discomfort of the complexity, pause there for a second, that's when we do find our greater capacity for compassion, to which we are called. So may we go forth together and separately, bold in our embrace of the complexities of compassion, knowing that we are sinful and wicked, and that sometimes we celebrate our sinfulness and wickedness. But also we lean into a call to leave it better than we found it. Go, beloveds, go. Amen.
Like Jesus, ain't nobody do me like the Lord. Ain't nobody do me like Jesus. He, my friend, healed my body, told me to run on, healed my body. to run on, healed my body. Told me to run on, he's my friend. Jesus on the main line, tell him what you want. Jesus on the main line, you better tell him what you want. Jesus on the main line, you better tell him what you want. Call him up and tell him what you want. Said the line is never busy. Tell him what you want. The line is never busy. You better tell him what you want. The line is never busy. You better tell him what you want. Call him up and tell him what you want.
I'm gonna sing along.
Live your life.
Let's do a little Tim Hahn with you.
Call him up and tell him what you want. Call him up, tell him up, you better tell him what you want. Call him up, you better tell him what you want. Call him up and tell him what you want. Jesus said Jesus on the main line, you better tell him what you want. Jesus is on the main line, you better tell him what you want. Was on the main line, you better tell him what you want. Call him up, tell him what you want. Call him up and tell him what you want. Call him up and tell him what you want.
Amen. Jay.
I was gonna say,